Isang masayang pagbati na may ngiti sa aking mga labi. Naghahanap ba kayo ng makakatuwang sa pagre-review ng inyong anak? Meron yan sa DepEd. Ang ETUlay online tutorial ay libre at handog ng ating kagawaran sa pangunguna ng OUA ICTS EdTech. Ito ay isang proyektong makatutulong sa mga mag-aaral, katuwang ang mga magulang o kasama sa kani-kanilang tahanan para masagutan at maunawaan ang mga modules. Hangad din ng programang ETUlay ang matulungan ang ating mga guro sa kanilang mga blended learning classes. Ang ating ETUlay ay mula kinder hanggang senior high school. Bukod sa academics, meron din tayong mga special programs gaya ng All is Wellness, Reading and Math Remediation, Storytelling, Mommy Tech Talks, Classes sa Gramatika, Speech Class, Financial Literacy, at marami pang iba. Pinalawig din ng ETUlay ang ating Alive program para sa mga mag-aaral mula grade 1 hanggang grade 3. Gayun din ay mayroon tayong ALS program at SPED tutorials na makasisigurong makakamit ng lahat ang inclusive education. May SPED hotline na rin para sa inyong mga katanungan patungkol sa special education. Kaya, subaybayan mula Lunes hanggang Biyernes, mula 9 ng umaga hanggang 7 ng gabi ang ating ETUlay. Sa ating pagtutulungan, maiaangat natin ang bawat isa. Ating itutulay ang pagkatuto upang di mapigil ang pag-aaral ng kabataang Pilipino. Itulay natin ito, sulong edukalidad.
Mabuhay! Good day to all! I am your tutor Madge. Welcome to ETUlay, a free online tutorial, an initiative of the Department of Education, Information and Communications Technology Service, Educational Technology Unit, ICTS EdTech. This program is aimed at helping and assisting learners from kindergarten, senior high school, ALS, Alive, and SPED learners. Aside from answering the modules, the ETUlay is offering programs which you will surely look forward to. Together with our parents and teachers, the ETUlay will bridge the gaps where difficulty and ease meet in learning new knowledge and skills. So, let us prepare our modules, pen and paper. Ready your mind to see and hear worthwhile and interesting lessons. Let us now study and learn, together with our volunteer online tutors. Tara na!
Isang maganda at mainit na Lunes ng hapon mga ka-ETUlay. Sa ating mga students, parents, co-teachers, warm welcome po sa ating ETUlay online tutorial General Biology 2. Ako po si Tutor Tina from San Lorenzo Ruiz Senior High School, SDO Pasig. Happy Monday sa aking partner, Tutor Easter. Kamusta po?
Magandang buhay, Tutor Tina. Magandang buhay mga ka-ETUlay at mga BioStar students and partner schools. Ako po si Tutor Easter from Horacio de la Costa High School, SDO Caloocan.
Okay, so today is March 21, 2022. Nasa week 6 na po tayo ng ating aralin at for this week, we're going to discuss phylogeny. Okay, so bago tayo magsimula, Tutor Easter, ang ating usual reminder muna. No? So get ready and prepare your pen and paper para sa mga new concepts na i-discuss natin for this week, for today. And then of course, our gadgets and of course, dapat ready tayo. Ready ang ating sariling makinig at Okay, so ayan.
Okay, Tutor Tina, ready na talaga ang ating mga BioStar students for today. So, for attendance check, nakikita natin sa ating mga chat box na tinatype na nila ang kanilang pangalan, grade and section, school and location, at name ng kanilang mga teacher. Marami nang nagtatype, Tutor Tina. At please share this live stream to others and please be respectful with your comments. Tutor Tina, ano nga po ba ang ating dapat na i-recap o i-review para sa napag-aralan nila last week?
Okay, so before that, no, Tutor Easter, i-recognize muna natin yung mga naging partner school at ating mga BioStar student previously sa ating week 5. At napakainit, kagaya ng panahon ngayon, no, napakainit talaga ng pagtanggap nila sa atin. So for the BioStar students of the week for week 5, we have Joanna Del Rosario, Aliyah Vinas, Charmaine Ballesteros, Ainsley Rustra, Mary Anting, James Jaire Dio. We also have Jazel Velasco, Austin Enriquez, hello sa aking student, Christian Suganog, Angelica Gatiayon, Lorraine Quinto, Rosel Kagalingan, Justin Fernandez, Erwin Sandoval, Emerson Deliariarte, Jesser Ayan Bayani, Sheila Alvarico, Patricia Rico, Annalyn De Vera, and Allen De Jesus. Napakarami nating BioStar students of the week, Tutor Easter.
Oo nga po, Tutor Tina, sobrang dami ating mga BioStar student at para naman sa ating mga Bioactive School of the Week, from Novaliches High School, Ma'am Janet Tamse, from Horacio de la Costa Senior High School, yours truly, from Lorenzo S. Sarmiento Senior National High School, Ma'am Noraida A. Sali, Padre Garcia National High School, Ma'am Ladilyn Ducay, from Jones Rural School, Ma'am Cheryl Gumpal Reyes, from San Lorenzo Ruiz Senior High School, Ma'am Cristina Marie, and from Marawi Integrated National High School, Sir Jerwin A. Gutierrez, and from San Mariano National High School, Mr. Noli L. Balbin. Salamat po sa ating mga partner school at mga bioactive teachers po na sumusuporta sa ating mga lesson, Tutor Tina.
Okay, congratulations po and thank you. So sana po supportahan niyo pa up to the last week. Okay, so balikan muna natin yung discussion natin last time, no, Tutor Easter. So this is from the week 5, basic taxonomy. Okay, so ayan, BioStar students, please ready mga keyboard warriors natin to answer. Okay, so for number 1, the only domain with nucleus and membrane-bound organelles. Okay, so we have there
BioStar students, pakitay po ang sagot na 1 and then your answer.
Yes, 6-letter word.
Yes, ready.
Kamusta na ba ating chat box, Tutor Easter? May mga sumasagot na ba?
Puro greetings, Tutor Tina. Oh,
Okay.
we have one answer here from Elena Remorosa, Eukarya. Tama po ba, Tutor Tina?
Okay, so let's see. Yes, correct, Eukarya. Very good. Let's go now to number 2. Okay, number 2, he was a Swedish botanist who devised the current classification that we have and also the naming system. Okay, so please type the number and then your answer, the first name, then the last name of this Swedish botanist. Okay, Tutor Easter, meron na ba tayong mga BioStar students na sumasagot sa ating chat box or ating comment section?
We have here from Amar Alamada Sali, Carolus Linnaeus ang sagot niya. So tama po ba, Tutor Tina?
Yes, of course. The correct answer is Carolus Linnaeus. And then based on our discussion last week, ito yung kanyang Latinized name. Okay, so let's go to number 3 and last question for our recap. Kingdom that contains extremophiles. Okay, ano kaya yun? So we have there, medyo mahaba, no? Okay, makaka-answer ba? Number 3 and then type your answers. It contains all the extremophiles.
Okay, so what is your answer, my dear BioStar students? Number 3? They are still Okay, from Sir Tutor Tony. Great day mga kaitulay. Please share our live stream para mas marami pang maabot ang online tutorial natin. Salamat and happy learning. Hello po, Tutor Tony.
Hello, Tutor Tony. Na-miss natin si
Okay,
Tutor
there is
Tony
an
sa
answer
ating live.
na. Oh, Tutor Tina, may answer na tayo from Jemanuel Enriquez. RK bacteria and Calamame alapaap. Is it RK bacteria?
Okay, yes, correct. So we have the kingdom Archaeobacteria. Okay, very good. Biostar students, and thank you for answering. Thank you for participating in our recap. So ano nga ba ang ating most essential learning competency for this week, week 6, Tutor Easter?
So for our most essential learning competencies for quarter 3, week 6 is to describe species diversity and cladistics, including the types of evidence and procedures that can be used to establish evolutionary relationships. So yan ang matutunan natin for this session. Tina?
Okay. Okay, so let's start. So last week, we said, no, we talked about, based on our discussion, that systematics is a broad, okay, no, malawak na study of biological diversity and the relationships among organisms. And for the last week, we already discussed or talked about taxonomy. So for this week, ang aaralin naman natin ay phylogeny or phylogeny. So what is phylogeny, mga kaitulay? So when you say phylogeny, this describes now relationship of organism as which organism it is thought to have evolved from, or from which species it is most closely or distantly related. Okay, so yung binibigay sa atin ng phylogenetic relationships, it provides us information about the shared ancestor. Not only that, no, it also provides us kung ano yung mga similarities and then differences among living organisms. Okay, so paano ba natin inaaral to, no, Tutor Easter at ating mga kaitay? So biologists use a tool, they call this tool the phylogenetic tree or the tree of life. Ayan, so we have here the example of a phylogenetic tree. And then here, it illustrates us or it shows us the evolutionary pathway and then connectedness among organisms. Ba napakarami. We have the three main domain here. We have the archaea, the bacteria, and then the eukarya. Okay, so it has multiple lines of evidences that shows that these organisms are really related. Pero take note, mga kaitulay ha, that scientists consider this phylogenetic tree as hypothesis of the evolutionary past. Bakit hypothesis? Ano ibig sabihin? Because no one can go back in the past to confirm this proposed relationship. Okay, so in short, we can just reconstruct or illustrate another phylogenetic tree in the future kung may mga bagong mga organisms na mag-iiba. Okay, so or in other words, we can also represent the relationship among organisms in a different tree. Okay, basta make sure na yung mga characters na makikita natin would be the same. So yan, mamaya di-discuss. Okay, so when we're looking at this, para lang tayong tumitingin sa ating genealogy, right, Tutor Easter, no? Parang tumitingin natin sa family tree natin. But this time, napakaraming magkaka-related or related organisms. So kasi pag family tree lang, no, just like ours, no, hindi kami ganun kami, Tutor Easter. Kayo ba, sa inyong family, malaki ba ang inyong family tree, Tutor Easter?
Yes, Tutor Tina, marami kaming member ng family. So kami ay 5 magkapatid. Tapos ang aking mother's side, 8 silang magkapatid. Tapos sa father's side, 8 din. Talagang malaki ang aming family tree. Pero pagdating sa anak-anakan na, 1, 2, diba?
Totoo yan. Okay, so let's continue. So how they construct phylogeny or phylogenetic tree is that they are considering characters. Okay, so these characters vary among species. And what are these characters? This can be morphological or anatomical features, just like yung diniscuss natin last time, yung presence of bones in the limb or the upper limb. So sa arms ng human, sa wings ng birds, or yung presence ng humerus, ulna, radius, okay. So tinitingnan natin kung may pagkakaiba ba, present ba to or absent ba to. And then we also have physiological adaptations. Let's say, can we make our own food or we rely on other organisms to be able to, we are heterotrophs, okay, mga ganun. And then molecular sequences or our DNA sequences, and then behavioral or ecological. So these characters can be in recognizable states, no, mga ka-ETUlay. So when you say recognizable states, dapat makikita natin present ba siya or absent ba siya. Just like for example, here, let's say the character that we are looking here is the teeth in amniovertebrate. So in all mammals and most of our reptiles, teeth are present. But in birds and turtles, okay, these teeth or the set of teeth is absent. Okay, so here in our phylogenetic tree, before, no, in the past, when they construct it, they are comparing as many characters as possible. Okay, parang the more the merrier, tutor Easter. Okay, kaya lang, the more
Yes.
characters that they have, they think it's better. Okay, so ang nangyayari ngayon, organisms that have many or more common characteristics or more similar characteristics, they become now neighbors of this phylogenetic tree. So magkalapit sila, nagiging neighbors sila. Let's say for example, we have here lizard and then bird. So since they are neighbors in this phylogenetic tree, we can say that they have the most number of similarities or mas marami silang common characteristics as compared to rat and the lizard, frog and lizard. Okay, but if we rely mostly on the similarities, that could be misleading. Okay, kasi kung magiging ganun yung basis natin in classification, then we will have an incorrect classification system. Why? Because magkakaroon tayo ng tinatawag nating homoplasy. So when we say homoplasy, homoplasy are shared characteristics that are not a result of common ancestry, but of independent evolution of similar characters. So tinatawag natin itong analogous structures. Diba? So it can result from convergent evolution. Ayan. So i-review lang natin yung discussion ni Tutor Easter last time about convergent evolution. So it happens when organisms are under similar environmental pressure. Okay, kung nasa isa, parehas sila ng environmental pressure, they now develop similar adaptations, or we call that nga the analogous structure. But technically, no, they're not really, they have different ancestral lineage. Yes, diba? Hindi naman talaga sila coming from the same ancestor. So let's say, for example, yung mga cave animals natin. So since they are of the same environmental pressures, madilim, okay, they lost now their ability to see, their eyes, even their eyes na nawawala, and also their pigmentations. Okay, parang black and white na lang nakikita nila. But when we look at this different organisms, hindi naman talaga sila parehas ng ancestor. Okay, so they evolve from different ancestral lineage. Okay, so let's compare now homoplasy versus homology. So here in letter A, we have here lizard, bird, and mammal. Okay, so if we are going to use homoplasy, we can, and then the character na titingnan natin dito ay yung pagkakaroon ng four-chambered heart. So kung yun ang gagamitin nating character, birds and mammals will be neighbors kasi lizard only has three-chambered heart. Okay, that would be misleading kasi hindi naman closely related talaga si bird and mammals. They are not really coming from the same ancestry. But lizard and bird, reptiles and a bird really are coming from the same ancestry. So kung ang mangyayari ngayon, so dapat si lizard and bird will be on the same or will fall into neighbors, magiging sila yung neighbors, and then si mammals ngayon nakahiwa. Okay, so ganyan po. No? So if we're going to look only base our classification system just looking at the similarities, okay, kakaroon talaga tayo ng incorrect classification. So that's the reason why we have cladistics. So in cladistics, it's a way of classifying organisms into hierarchical branches based on derived shared derived characteristics. Ano nga ba itong shared derived characteristics? No, i-differentiate natin. Because we also have shared ancestral characteristics.
Characteristics.
Yes, okay. So when we say derived characteristics, these are the similarity that is inherited from the most recent ancestor. While the ancestral characteristics are the similarity that arose prior to the common ancestor of the group. So if we are going to compare that in a timeline, si derived is new, okay, newer characteristic. So ang importante dito to differentiate them is when, okay, kailan ba nag-manifest yung characteristic na tinitingnan natin? Mas bago ba siya or mas luma? Because when you say ancestral, this one is older. Okay, those derived characters are newer, recent. Okay, common ancestor. So titingnan natin, anong characters ba yung mas naunang nag-manifest or mas naunang lumabas, di ba? And then, ano ba yung later na characteristic na meron tayo? Okay, so we have here, for example, our ancestral characters, the presence of backbone in all mammals and other vertebrates. Not only mammals, no? We have also here the fish, the reptile, and then amphibian, birds. They also have backbone. So we can say that this one is ancestral kasi long before pa, meron na present na rin to sa iba't ibang type of animal. While the derived character here is the presence of hair only in mammals. Okay, so we have, but the presence of hair is now absent sa ibang type of animal. So wala nang hair. It is already absent in amphibians, in reptiles, and so on. Okay, so napaka-importante na titingnan natin yung timeline or when the characteristic really manifested or arose. Okay, and then we have here two important terms. Simplesiomorphy, meaning that these characters are, that the shared ancestral characters are all present in the members of the clade. We call that the simplesiomorphy. But when the derived character is shared by the members of the clade, we call that the synapomorphy. Okay, so simplesiomorphy again is the ancestral characteristic is shared by all the members of the clade, while the synapomorphy is the derived character is shared by all the members of. So mamaya ipapakita. Okay, so how do we determine which one is derived aside from the time and which one is the ancestral characteristic? Kung let's say hindi natin alam kung kailan, no? Kailan yung time na lumabas yung characteristic. So biologists use an outgroup. So what is an outgroup? This is not part of the group of interest. Yung group of interest natin, we call that the in-group. But also, it's not too distantly related. Hindi siya ganun kalayong organism sa i-compare natin. So the outgroup is used to polarize the character states or infer change. So the character state possessed by the outgroup is defined as a priori or meaning before as ancestral plesiomorphy. Okay, so we have here, so after we analyze the cladistic study, we have now what we call a cladogram. So a cladogram is a tree-like diagram that represents the relatedness of organisms. And then the basic unit of a cladogram is what we call a clade. So ito yung the smallest unit. That they have this common ancestor. Okay. So let's say, for example, here we have an example cladogram. And at the very bottom, okay, we can see the character vertebrae. Okay, so by looking at this, now we can conclude that all the organisms in the cladogram, except for the insect, okay, is said to be or has vertebra, or siya lang yung hindi vertebrate in this study. So we can consider insects here as an outgroup. Okay. So the outgroup will serve as a useful comparison for the animals in our study. Since the vertebrate characteristic is shared by all the animals here in our study group, we call this now the ancestral character. Okay. Or we can also call this as the simplesomorphy. Okay, because this one is can be shared. Yung ancestor character nito is shared by all the organism here in our cladogram, such as fish, amphibians, birds, prosimians or primates, and then okay, and then now next. The next character after vertebrate, we can see the tetrapod. Okay, so the tetrapod, the fish now branch off right here because among all the so wala na si insect. So among all the animals here, siya lang yung hindi tetrapod. Okay? So as we can see here, no, Tutor Easter, as we move towards the upward, no, dito sa ating cladogram, yung placement natin ng organism or ng character confirm its relatedness to one another. Okay, so we can say that prosimians, or what we call now the primates, I'll use the pen. Okay, yung primates natin is more closely related to humans than birds is to humans. Okay, so actually in interpreting a cladogram, kung sino yung nasa rightmost mo, yun doon ka more closely related. Okay, so let's say birds are more closely related to primates, amphibians are more closely related to birds, and so on. Okay, but it's not, it cannot be in reverse way. So of course, si humans could be, kasi siya yung pinaka-last natin in our in-group or the study interest. So of course, humans, we can say that humans is closely or more closely related to the primates compared to the other animals in the group. But we cannot say that prosimians is more closely related to amphibians, to fish, and so on. So, but aside from that, since we talked about earlier that this one is hypothesis evolutionary path or evolutionary past, we can now reconstruct it. Basta make sure that the characters will fall on the same position, and then nandun pa rin yung mga characters or yung mga organism of our study. So let's say here, for example, no, dito, nakita natin na yung fish branch off in this part, but nandun pa rin, no, it falls also, yung character pa rin natin dito would be the vertebrates. So nung tetrapods na, nag-branch off na siya, and then we have here in the amniotic egg, si amphibians ay nag-branch off na. Then we have the presence of hair, okay, nawala na si birds. And then the bipedal, it's only the humans. Okay? So here we can, it's just showing to us that we can really write or reconstruct cladogram in a different way, but make sure that the in-group, okay, ay nandun pa rin siya sa tamang characteristics. Okay, so let's talk about now the parts of our cladogram. Okay, so we have here the root. Okay, so the root is the oldest common ancestor of all the species in our phylogenetic tree. Okay, so ayan, si root. And then the circles here, denoted by blue circles right here, is what you call the node. Okay, so in other reference, you can see that this as the internal node. Yan, nakalagay dyan. So the nodes are where the species branch off from the common ancestor. So organisms that are more closely related share now a common ancestor. So let's say, for example, here we have the taxon 3 and then the taxon 2. Ang common ancestor nila, itong node na to. Okay, so we can say that taxon 2 and taxon 3 are more closely related than taxon 1 and taxon 3. Okay, because they are sharing more recent common ancestor. Okay, so yan. So we can also say that yung pinaka-last natin na group we call that the out group, or yun yung ipagko-compare natin sa ating mga in-group. Okay. So aside from that as well, we have sister groups. Okay, so when we say sister groups, this one is a pair of taxa that are most closely related to each other. Okay, so than any other group pa in our study. So here, let's say for example, we have here the organism BNE as our sister taxa, okay, or sister group, because they share the they share the common ancestor, yes, and no other organism in this cladogram share the common ancestor that they share, right? Okay, what else? Okay, so sa ating mga BioStar student, can you type here, ano pa kaya yung mga sister taxa in this diagram? Is it only DNE lang ba ang sister taxa dito or sister groups dito? Okay, so ang characteristic natin, it's a pair of taxa that are most closely related because they share the recent common ancestor. And sila lang yung groups na yon na nag-share dun sa ancestor. No other organism in this cladogram share that. Sige nga, ating mga BioStar students, may ano pa kayang mga organism yung we can consider as sister taxa in this diagram, in this cladogram that we have?
Ayan,
Meron
Tutor
bang-
Tina, may sagot tayo from Elena Remorosa. FNG daw, tama ba?
Okay, yes, correct. FNG is also a sister taxa. What else kaya? Okay, also B and C are sister taxa. Yan, ang gagaling. So, naiintindihan na nila yung concept of sister taxa. Okay, now, so let's go to another terminologies here. So, yeah, so here, aside from that, no, we also have an example here. So, in our diagram, we have the Homo, or the humans. We can say from this diagram, by looking at this diagram, we can conclude that it is more closely related to chimpanzee based on this diagram, okay, because they fall on, or they are sister taxa here. Aside from that, gorilla, as you can see here, we have the gorilla, and then, okay, this common ancestor, nag-diverge siya dito, but we have chimpanzee and Homo, or the humans. So we can also say, or we can also conclude that gorilla is a sister taxa or in sister taxa with chimpanzee and the Homo. Okay, and then we can also say that our orangutan here is also sister taxa with our gorilla, chimpanzee, and Homo. Okay, so I hope that's clear for our BioStar students. Okay, so let's go now to other way of interpreting our cladograms. So first one is monophyletic. So monophyletic consists of all of the ancestor species and all its descendants. So mag-start muna tayo dito, Tutor Easter. So we have here the red circle. This one, when you say red circle, that is the node. And that node represent the common ancestor. Common ancestor dito, the organism E and F. Okay, so if we are going to encircle this one, because ang sabi naman lang dito ay consists of the ancestor and all its descendants, then we can say that E and F is also a monophyletic clade. Okay, di ba? So ano naman natin, na-meet naman natin yung standard ni monophyletic. Ang sabi lang naman niya is common ancestor and all its descendants. And ang descendants lang natin dito is C, E, and F. So we can say that this clade is a monophyletic already. Okay, so what if we choose naman itong node na to, which is also a common ancestor. Then if we are talking about monophyletic clade, so dapat E, F, and G is also a monophyletic clade. Okay, and then also this one is another common ancestor. And then isama natin lahat ng kanyang descendants. Then also E, F, G, H is a monophyletic clade. Okay, sa ating mga BioStar students, can you also give us example of monophyletic clade based on this diagram? May nagta-type ba? Okay. So ayan.
BioStar students, so shout out sa ating mga BioStar students from Horacio de la Costa High School, from San Mariano National High School, at sa aking co-teacher na si Ma'am Beverly Lorenzo Ocoman. So yan po. May Tutor Tina, may sagot na EFNG daw.
Yes, E, F, and G is also monophyletic group. C and this one also, C and D, is also a monophyletic group. Okay, and then A, B, C, and D is also a monophyletic group. Okay, so tingnan natin yung iba, no? So this one, we have the common ancestor here. So we can say that crocodile, stegosaurus, tyrannosaurus, velociraptor, and hawk are one of the common or of the monophyletic. So actually, ito yung talagang gusto ng cadogram natin, no? To have monophyletic. So the common ancestor plus all its descendants. Dapat isama mo lahat ng descendants. Next, we go to paraphyletic. So paraphyletic clade consists of the ancestral species, but not all the descendants. So, hindi niya sinama lahat ng descendants. We call that the paraphyletic clade. So in our example here, we have, this one is the common ancestor, this one is the common ancestor. Well, by the way, let me go back. In monophyletic, you have to count, kung bibilangin mo kung ilan ang monophyletic in the cladogram, you just have to count the number of nodes. Okay, so malalaman mo na kung ilan ang monophyletic group in the cladogram. Okay, so going back in our paraphyletic, so here, hindi niya sinama yung descendants na A and B. So hanggang C and D lang sinama niya. So that's a paraphyletic clade. Okay, because kailangan mong ma-meet in monophyletic all its descendants. So in our example here, so hindi niya sinama si hawk. Sinama lang niya si stegosaurus, tyrannosaurus, and velociraptor. So yan si paraphyletic group. And then the last, we have here the polyphyletic group. This means that it includes many species that lack common ancestor. So wala silang common ancestor. Gusto mo lang silang aralin. So let's say here, ang example natin, common ancestor ni C and D is this node. Ang common ancestor ni E and F is this node. Pero gusto mo silang aralin, so that would be a polyphyletic clade. Okay, you can also choose B and let's say G. Okay, wala silang common ancestor. They lack the common ancestor, pero gusto mo silang aralin. So that could be a polyphyletic clade. So ang example natin dito, let's say you want to study bat and the hawk. Okay, so they don't have the most recent common ancestor kasi ang common ancestor ni bat would be this node, and then si hawk is this node. Okay, that's the polyphyletic type of representation. Okay, so here, since kanina nakita natin marami palang pwedeng representation, we have now the principle of parsimony. And ito napakaganda ng Tutor Easter because the simplest is the best. Diba? Hindi lang pala sa beauty yan, pati sa pag-represent ng relationship or relatedness ng organism. We need to choose the most simple. And the most simple ay yung merong pinaka-onting evolutionary step. We call that now the principle of parsimony, or we call that the most parsimonious. Okay, so let's say we have here hypothetical 3 bird species. So hypothetical because we cannot really sure that this species are really related. So meron tayong 3 possible phylogenetic tree. So let's say ang representation is 1 and 2, 3 and 4, and then the other one 1 and 3, 2 and 4, and so on. Meron tayong 3 phylogenetic tree. Okay, so ngayon, bibilangin natin yung evolutionary step. So dito, meron siyang 8 events. Dito, meron siyang 9 events. Dito, meron siyang 10 events. So kung sino yung least number of events, evolutionary steps, yun yung pipiliin natin. And we call that the most parsimonious. So the mas simple, mas maganda in terms of classification. Okay, and then we also have various tree layouts. Meron tayong rooted tree and unrooted tree. When ang difference lang nila in rooted tree, we can see meron tayong common ancestor here, and it diverge into 2 lines. So the blue lines for bacteria, green for archaea, and orange for our eukarya. But in unrooted phylogenetic tree, wala siyang common ancestor, pero nakikita natin yung relatedness of one organism. Okay. So there you go. So we now, for our summary, so systematics now focuses on biological diversity, the taxonomy and phylogeny. And then for taxonomy, we are focusing on the identification of species. We use the 2 classification method, the naming system, and then in phylogeny, we use statistics and so on. Ayun. Okay, so there we have it. At natapos na natin ang systematics tutor Easter. Okay, so now let's go muna sa thoughts to ponder before tayo mag-knowledge. Okay, so for our thoughts to ponder, no, as we end up the discussion of systematics tutor Easter, no, hindi ko, I can't help myself but to remember this Bible verse talaga. So let me read it from Genesis 2:19-20. Now the Lord God had formed out of the ground all the wild animals and all the birds in the sky. He brought them to the man to see what he would name them. And whatever the man called each living creature, that was its name. So the man gave names to all the livestock, the birds in the sky, and all the wild animals. But for Adam, no suitable helper was found. So itong systematics, it's not just a subject, no, but pinapakita sa atin ito yung isang purpose ni God para sa atin. It is to name yung mga ginawa niya. Diba? So napakalaking responsibility sa atin ito as human being na i-explore pa kung ano pa ba yung meron pa bang mga unidentified species, ano pa ba yung mga unknown species na kailangan nating pangalanan. So, napakahirap nito. Nung nasa college pa ako, tutor Easter, itong subject na to is napakahirap niya talagang intindihin. So, na-appreciate ko lang siya when I'm in master's. And then right now, reading this Bible verse, no, na we have this purpose. Isa sa napakarami nating purpose as man is to name the creatures. No? Sa lahat ng ginawa ni God, ay tayo ang responsible for that. No? Napakalaking, ano yun, no? It's an opportunity for me.
Responsibility natin.
Diba?
Nalagaan natin ang bawat isa.
Yes, no? And then we can also see here na tayo talaga yung ginawa on the topmost na hierarchy. So hindi niya yan binigay yung responsibility na to. Hindi niya ibinigay sa iba, pero ibinigay niya sa man to name them. Diba? Napakaganda. Okay. So I hope we appreciate this subject.
Tupuan ko. Dahil tayo rin
Yes.
ay nag-aalaga, 'di ba? Ginugot tayo sa ano ng lalaki. Kaya tayo ay
Yes.
talagang tagapangalaga din ng mga kalalakihan bilang isang babae, 'di ba? Si
Yes,
Adam at
okay.
Eva.
Yes, to correct yan, no? In the last part of the verse na nabasa natin. So there we have it. So for our what's on your mind for the week, ating task for the week, mga BioStar students, is you have to create a tree of your relatedness, your family tree, and using, of course, your own family. So you can use your grandparents as your common ancestors, and then your parents, and then you and your siblings. So please submit your outputs on our official ETUlay General Biology 2 Facebook page with Tutor Isa and Tutor Tina until March 25 only. Okay, so there you have it.
Ano na naman yan, mga pananambigan ng ating mga BioStar students. So, ayan na ang ating knowledge check, mga ka-BioStar students. Pakitype po ang inyong sagot. 1 and then sagot po. O the number and then sagot po. Okay? For knowledge check, number 1, the science of cladistics produces a system for naming and classifying organisms. A, true. B, false. C, cannot tell. D, either A or B. BioStar students?
Sagot na. Type the number and then your answer.
Okay, Tutor Tina, we have an answer here from Elena Remorosa. Is letter B. Is it letter B, Tutor Tina?
Yes, correct. Letter
good.
B. It's taxonomy. Let's go to number 2.
Number 2, when using a cladistic approach to systematics, which of the following is considered most important for classification? A, shared derived characters. B, shared primitive characters. C, overall phenotypic similarity. D, analogous primitive characters.
Okay, so sagot
Okay,
na.
BioStar student, what is your answer in number 2?
Sinay-light natin yan kanina.
BioStar students, ayan. Shout out tayo dyan sa ating mga partner institution. So again, from Elena Remorosa, letter A. Is it letter A, Tutor Tina?
Yes, correct. So we are considering shared derived characters. Okay, for number 3.
A branching diagram that represents the proposed phylogeny or evolutionary history of a species or group. A. Kinship. B. Pedigree. C. Genogram. D. Cladogram. Number 3, BioStar students, please type your answer. Kinship ba? So we have an answer here from Elena again. Is it letter D, Tutor Tina?
Yes, correct. It's cladogram. All right, let's go to number 4, Tutor Easter.
Okay, for number 4, what is a shared derived trait? A trait shared by all outgroup taxa. B, a physical trait shared by sister taxa. C, a physical trait shared by all organisms of that particular taxon. D, a recent trait shared by all sister taxa and their most recent outgroup. So what is your answer, BioStar student, for number 4? Is it A, B, C, or D?
Okay, type na mga BioStar students.
Okay, shout out sa lahat ng mga nanonood sa ating session ngayon. So we have an answer from Ivan De Lunas. Letter B. Is it letter B?
The correct answer is letter
C.
C. Okay, shared by other visits in a particular taxon. Okay, so let's have number 5. Based
So
on
for
the
number
diagram
5,
above, okay, which of the following species has hair? Is it A, species number 4, B, species number 3, C, species number 2, or D, species number 1? Okay, may sumasagot na ba, Tutor Easter, sa ating comment section?
wala pa, Tutor Tina. Okay, meron na po. From Ivan De Lunas again. Is it letter D?
Okay, tingnan
Okay,
natin.
letter A.
Yes,
So,
correct.
very good. So, that
Correct
is
answer is letter D, species A. So, kaya nang mag-interpret ng cladogram. Very good. All right. So, now, Tutor Easter, let's recognize the mahusay output of the week for our week 5. Okay, go ahead,
yes,
Tutor.
Tina. So, from San Lorenzo Ruiz Senior High School, Matthew D. Enriquez.
Okay, congratulations, Matthew.
From Lorenzo S. Sarmiento Senior National High School, from Cheska Cabanting. From Jones Rural School, Whitney Lantano. And from Horacio de la Costa High School, Russell J. Andujar.
Yan, siguro yung mga tanim talaga nila at alaga nila yung pinicturean.
Yes. From Jones Rural School, Charmaine Ballesteros. And from Horacio de la Costa High School, Aliyah Isabel Golosinda. From Daniel R. Aguinaldo National High School, Glidel Oplado. From Jones Rural School, Johanna Del Rosario. Gaganda ng mga output nila, Tutor Tina.
Yes.
And from Lorenzo S. Sarmiento Senior National High School, Amar Sally.
Okay, so there you have it. Congratulations, BioStar students. Ang gaganda ng output. And these are our references, the books and online books, modules, and online references. And also, don't forget to support other senior high school science and technology subjects. We have physical science, we have empowerment technologies, DRRR, disaster readiness and risk reduction, and of course, our general biology.
And for our feedback, your feedback matters to us. So you just type that in URL, ETUlay feedback form, and also the scan the QR code.
Okay, we're very open to your feedback, comments, complaints, and all. Just scan lang the QR code. So thank you so much po for watching our online session. And up next po is ALS or Alternative Learning System, Lifelong Learning. So again, ako po ulit si Tutor Tina from San Lorenzo Ruiz Senior High School, SDO Pasig. Samahan niyo po ulit kami next week, Monday, same time, 4:40 to 5:20 p.m.
Ako naman si Tutor Easter from Horacio de la Costa High School, SDO Caloocan City. Nag-iiwan ng mga katagang, magkakaiba man ang ating pinanggalingan, tayo ay isang nilalang ng Diyos, dapat tayo ay magrespetohan at magmahalan sa bawat isa.
Correct.
See you po. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Ang husay naman! Natapos mo ang iyong tutorial session kasama ang iyong mahusay na ETUlay tutor. May bago ka bang natutuhan? I-share na yan gamit ang hashtag #ETUlayLevelUp. Huwag aalis ha, dahil may susunod pang programa na pwede mo ring panoorin at salihan. Dahil naghihintay na ang iyong mga tutors. Happy learning dito sa ETUlay!